Welcome to the Basketball and Brew podcast produced by Jude McLaren, and I'm your host, Dan Miller. Thank you for joining us for this week's podcast, and please help us out by subscribing to our podcast on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you are watching, and please give us a follow on Twitter. Tonight's podcast is brought to you by sponsors both right here in beautiful San Marcos, Texas. Pie Society is an excellent stop in San Marcos for great New York-style pizzas made with the freshest ingredients, local beers on tap, and an overall fun and cool vibe. And come into Zellick's Ice House when in San Marcos for their happy hour drink specials, their outside patio, and great time, great vibes, and just an overall fun bar. Tonight, we're joined by a guest, Arkansas Fort Smith head basketball coach Jim Boone. Coach Boone has won 590 career victories as an NCAA head basketball coach and turned around numerous basketball programs. During his career, Boone's teams have won 8 conference championships, 5 tournament titles, and have made 12 NCAA tournament appearances, while Coach Boone has been named the Coach of the Year 7 times in different conferences. Coach Boone is a keynote speaker around the country on his motion offense, rebuilding programs, and what we're going to talk a lot about tonight, his pack defense. Coach Boone, thank you for coming on today, and welcome to Basketball and Brew.
Coach, thank you. It's awesome to be here. I appreciate the chance to talk a little basketball. Always look forward to that. And as we were talking off air there, it was great to hear that we had been at a clinic together, and it's good to reconnect. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely, Coach. You know, I remember, I don't know why they asked me to speak at that clinic, but I was there in the morning talking and stayed and watched you do a great job in the afternoon talking about pack defense. So when I started this podcast right away, I thought of getting you on here and talking some pack defense, Coach. Before we do, Coach, I just kind of wanted to just talk about career-wise. You know, you have 590 victories. That's obviously a lot, probably getting 600 this year, obviously. But besides all the victories, Coach, what are you most proud of in your coaching career?
Oh, that's a great question. Without a doubt, the thing that I'm the most proud upon is the number of young people's lives that we've been able to impact through this thing we call coaching. Mm-hmm. And, you know, we just had Father's Day, and you're getting calls and texts and tweets and things from former players saying Happy Father's Day and thank you. And, you know, you're hitting them back, and, you know, Happy Father's Day to you as well. Birthdays, Christmas, whatever it is, and just reconnecting with those guys. But at the end of the day, Coach, the most important thing that we all do is we're trying to do our best to help our guys become better husbands, better fathers, and better leaders in their own communities. And when I can see our guys going out and doing those things in their respective communities, that's what really makes me proud. That's what really pushes that hot button. And be honest with you, it's what keeps me going today. You know, it's the basketball part of it I love. And like any of us that are in this game, I love the competition, but it's our players and it's the relationships you have with those guys.
I love that, Coach. And you've been coaching so long that I imagine you have a big list of players, you know, that have played for you that are now. Do you have some coaches that played for you who are now coaches?
I have a ton of guys that are coaches.
Love that.
As much as I probably tried to discourage them, including my own son.
Right.
But a ton of guys that are coaching, and I couldn't be prouder of what they're doing to give back to their communities and to young people everywhere.
Right. That's cool, Coach. And I wanted to touch on that with your son. We had Samson on here for the very first podcast, and we asked him about what it's like to coach under his dad as an assistant coach and coach together. And I guess it's the opposite for you as the head coach and your son as the assistant coach. But, Coach, what has that been like?
You know, it's funny because this morning when I was working on a campus event, somebody had asked me about that. Jimmy had introduced him. That's my son. He had introduced himself to that individual, and then they came up and said hello to me, and they said, "Wait a minute, you two, that's your son. You guys look alike." That's a poor guy. But no, and they said, you've probably been coaching him or been with him your whole life. And I have been. And how blessed is anyone to have that opportunity? I'm very fortunate. I've got two sons. I've been able to coach them both at different times. Jimmy played for me in college, which was a tremendous experience.
Right.
I really loved coaching him. And it was. Everybody says you got to leave it on the court. Don't bring it home. But our family is a basketball family.
Sure.
And I can't tell you the number of times we'd come home and sit at the dinner, and my wife is wanting to know, well, what happened here? Why did you take him out of the game right here? Jimmy's sitting there. He handled it. He handled those things really, really well. But I love doing that. But as much as I loved all that,
sure,
it's been even better working with him. And
right.
He's married, has a beautiful wife, and they just had a gorgeous child here, almost a year old. We're getting close to that, and to have both of them with Jimmy in our lives and a part of what we're doing every day, and him in my office every day, and we're conferring on things and deciding what we're going to do, and what have you. And it's been even better and more fun than it was when I was coaching it.
Yeah. That's really special, Coach, and I love that for you. And we're the same way here. We're a basketball family. It's been a little bit when our kids played, but it's tough to leave it at the door. But you bring home because y'all are talking basketball. My wife's, everyone, we're all talking basketball. Is what we do here.
We're all
too.
Basketball people.
Yeah.
That's exactly right.
So,
and it's almost impossible to leave at the door.
Yeah.
And I don't know that I would want to leave it.
Yeah.
It's fun having that and that
Sure.
common denominator that we can share as a family.
Yeah, it's great. I love that about being able to be with your son and have him on staff. That would be a really special thing, and great. Happy for you guys with that, Coach. Can I ask before we go into some defensive stuff? I know you've been coaching a long time, and you have great coaches that who are friends, who are Hall of Famers. You have coaches who have influenced you over time, I'm sure. And, being from Wisconsin, I know one of them is Dick Bennett, who's a big influence on my life. Can you talk about, Coach, some of those coaches that you really look into over your career?
Well, I don't know that anyone who has influenced me more than what my junior high basketball coach did, Alan Osborne. We still talk probably 2 to 3 times a week, if not more today.
That's great.
He's still coaching, which is amazing. He loves it. He loves impacting kids, and he's won a state title this year in West Virginia, and the winningest coach, and I think the winningest active coach in the state.
Wow.
So yeah, he's been the most influential, but there's some other guys along the way that have really impacted my career and helped to, you take a little bit here and a little bit there, and guys like Dick Bennett, who you mentioned, has had a major impact, particularly from, I tell you what, really on both sides of the basketball.
Okay.
With his offensive approach and his defensive approach, and they go hand in hand. Bob Knight, when I had an opportunity to meet Coach Knight, to watch his teams practice, I could just feel that sense. This is how you want to do it in terms of his teaching, and his ability to take a team and build it together and take it from A to Z. Rick Majerus, I don't know that there's anybody that's been a better teacher of basketball.
Right.
And just sitting down and listening to Coach Majerus is absolutely amazing. But probably of all those guys, other than my coach, the guy that had the greatest influence on me is Don Meyer. Coach Meyer, I was blessed to get to know him on a personal level early in my career, and we became friends and were able to share things throughout the years. And so I don't know anybody that's given more back to coaches than what Coach Meyer has done.
Right. Coach, fabulous group there, and you're so right with Coach Meyer. When I was a GA at Southwest Minnesota State, and we played their northern state teams, and I just remember looking at the team and seeing them warm up and thinking, man, we're going to get this team. I think that we have a little more talent. Oh, coach, let me tell you, they took it to us because, they just did everything right. Their guys did everything hard. It was just a clinic. And then that's when I kind of, as a very young coach, learned who Coach Meyer was.
Great teacher, great coach, great strategist, and better person.
Wow. Yes. And you're right, Coach, about sharing the game. And that's something that you do also a lot, obviously, putting stuff out on social media, putting stuff out on Twitter, making videos. Coach, how does that make you feel, just giving back? And when you maybe see a team or get a text or email from a high school coach saying, hey, I did this, or I caught this from your clinic. And does it feel good to share the game like you do, Coach?
It's another avenue, Coach, that I thoroughly enjoy. I was so fortunate in my career, as I've already mentioned, to have a guy like Bob Knight who kind of took me under his wing, and I worked his camps and went to his academies, and he paid special attention to me. And as a young guy, you're just like, wow.
Yes.
Coach Meyer, used to stay at his house with him and his family, and go watch him, whether it was his camp, his academy that he ran in the summer, his post and perimeter development camps, which were awesome as a young coach to go to and just learn the teaching that was being involved there. Dick Bennett, all those guys, they were great to share. Sometimes I think we lose that a little bit today. And it used to be in those days, you just pick up the phone and, talk. You couldn't email. You had to actually talk.
Right.
And, I'd like to come and watch practice. And I can tell you this, of all the college programs that I've went to watch practice and work out, I've never had a coach tell me you can't do that. I've never had a coach tell me no. Yeah, so we want to do it as well. We want to be able to give back to coaches as much as we can. It's not like we have the lock and key on the vault of knowledge of basketball, but whatever we do have, we're willing to share, and we want to provide it to coaches. And if we can help in some little way, then we're here to do that.
Right. And I know something that's become a huge thing for many years, wherever you are the head coach, is the fall clinic that you put on, Coach. And I know many people, friends who've learned so much from that clinic. Can you just talk about when you do that and kind of why you do that?
Again, it's to give back to coaches. I think it's a great way for us to share our program. I think it's great for our student athletes, for our players, to have an opportunity to be a part of that. It's something that Coach Meyer did, and I always admired and wanted to do it. And once we were able to get it going, we started it back when I was the head coach at California University of Pennsylvania. We've continued it in some shape or fashion throughout all these years. And we really haven't missed a year, I don't know, for 25, 30 years. We even had the good fortune that we were able to run it during the COVID year. And as I told somebody the other day, we've had as many as 250 plus coaches coming from everywhere, from New York to Florida, from California and in between, and overseas coaches. We've had a ton of coaches come from Mexico up to see our clinic. And it doesn't matter if we have that many, or we have some years we've had 20, 25 coaches.
Sure.
We're going to do it the same regardless. Right. We're going to give you everything we got within a very short period of time, and try to leave you with every question answered and anything that you may want when you come to see us. The clinic this year, it's always we try to run it in the beginning of October, and it's October 7th and 8th this year is our free fall clinic. Anybody that's interested, just email me and we'll get you a flyer sent out. Love to have you.
Wonderful, Coach. We'll drop a link or something also after when we post
perfect.
this.
Appreciate it.
Coach, I love that, and that's why we do this. We love sharing the game, talking knowledge about basketball. And Coach, let's dive in a little bit with defense. I know we could go either way because you're known for your motion offense, of course, too. But I really wanted, and a lot of people wanted me to talk defense with Coach Boone. So the first question I have, Coach, kind of a novice question, but just can you talk about what the pack line defense, what it is, and what are the things you're trying to take away if you're running great pack line defense?
Absolutely. Coach, the first thing I would say is this. I would give all the credit in the world to Coach Bennett, who you've mentioned and I've mentioned already, Coach Dick Bennett. I say Coach Bennett, he's the father of the pack line defense. We've put our twist to it. We've put our style to it, who we are, what we do, but everything we do are things that we were very fortunate to learn from Coach many years ago. He's one of the guys. Short story, I was a guy that played up the line, on the line, denied everything, fought you for every single inch of the court, didn't want to give you anything, didn't want to let you make a pass, definitely didn't want to let you reverse the basketball.
Sure.
And I took the job at Robert Morris University, which is a small Division I in Pittsburgh in the Northeast Conference, and we inherited a program that was really down, like we've kind of fallen into, that we get a lot of those. And when I got there, we went through the first 2 or 3. In those days, you couldn't do anything until October 15th.
Right, like Division III basketball now, like we were talking about.
Exactly. We could run, we could lift, we could play pickup, but we weren't allowed to be in the gym. And
sure.
Anyway, make a long story short, we practiced a couple days, and there's just no way we're not going to be able to play that way with this team. And so I called Coach Bennett, talked to Brad Soderberg, who was his assistant at the time, and they said, "Yeah, come on out." So I practiced our team to like Thursday morning at 6 a.m. and got in the car and drove from Pittsburgh to Madison, Wisconsin, and camped out there and watched them practice Friday and a couple times on Saturday and again on Sunday. And that's where we developed the foundation of what we were doing with pack line defense. We were just okay with it at very best, because here's the deal. Anybody can play a gap-oriented defense. But the pack line is about creating a defensive culture. It's about a mindset, a belief system. It's got to be who you are. And, obviously, whenever you're creating a culture, part of your job as a leader is to not only live that culture every day. So whether it be in practice and how we start practice, we're always going to start with something defensive oriented. The decisions I make, every decision we make is based upon, can we make our defense better? To just making sure that we're doing a good job of selling it to our players, and that they understand this is the best vehicle for us to ride to success. And one of the things I love is when we get our former players or guys that are at the end of their career saying, "Coach, there's no better way to play than back line defense." That's what. Then I know we've done a good job with those guys. But what we're trying to accomplish is basically just protect the lane. And that's not it's funny, that's something that guys don't want to talk about as much today because of the advent of the three-point shot. And if anything, Coach, I think we have a tendency to be a little bit too fearful of the three-point shot, because at the end of the day, games are still won in the paint.
Sure.
We're fortunate to see a great 6-game series between the Warriors and the Lakers. And if I'm not mistaken, I know that at least 5 of them were, but I believe all 6 games were won by the team that led in paint points. Not the team that hit the most threes necessarily, but the team that scored the most points in the paint. So that in a nutshell is what we're trying to do. We're just trying to keep the ball out of paint to force you into shooting very tough contested twos. Now, we don't want to give up walk-in threes. We're trying to take that away. But I'm not going to our decisions have been made around trying to take away the paint first and foremost. And that, as I always tell our players when we start practice, I've made that decision. That's been made a long time ago. and now everything we do from is going to stem from that.
Right, right. I like that, Coach. And can I ask, just at the very start of a possession, once a shot goes up, can I ask, when you are on offense, are you sending 2 back, 1 back, just to get that defensive transition started? So just looking at it from a defensive transition standpoint.
It depends on who we're playing with,
Okay.
but here's what we do. We'll line up our group in the very beginning of the year. And if we're not sure about a guy, we'll tell him we're not sure, that we're going to evaluate him as practice goes on, and then we'll make that final assessment. But we tell our guys, you're either a get back guy, which means you're getting back on the rise of the shot, or you're a rebounder. And it doesn't matter where they end up on the court, where they're positioned, if they're on the top, on the wing, on the baseline, whatever, you're either a get back guy or you're a rebounder. And the majority of the time, we're probably playing with a lineup that consists of 3 get back guys
Okay.
and 2 rebounders. Now, I think, Dan, that really helps us in 2 ways. Number one, it helps us to take away the other team's opportunity to get fast break layups because we've got the lane protected.
Yep.
But number 2, it really enhances our opportunity to get to the offensive glass because we don't have guys trying to guess, am I supposed to be a rebounder here, or am I supposed to be a get back guy? No,
Yeah.
I know I'm a rebounder, so I'm going to go to that glass and attack it with relentlessness to get that offensive rebound and give my team another chance. Now, that's one of the things we've changed a little bit here in the last several years. We used to just send guys sprinting all the way back immediately, but what we do, our get back guys, but what we do with them now is we'll take a step or 2 and drift back to kind of see what's going to happen. Because if we're going to get a long rebound, it'll tip out to us.
Yep.
Or if we get an offensive rebound, that, the best 3-point shot comes off of an offensive rebound kicked out a lot of the time.
Sure.
That we want to be there for that. And then as soon as we see what's transpiring, that we're not going to get that rebound or what have you, we're getting to paint right then.
Okay. I like that, Coach, too. A lot of times kids or players get caught in that gray area. Do I go in for the offensive rebound, or do I and then they don't do either. They don't do either good. So
Amen.
Yeah.
You're exactly right. 100% correct. So we've played with as many as 4 rebounders and 1 get back guy, even though that's very, very rare. And we've played with as many as 4 get back guys and 1 rebounder. And that's probably almost as rare as the reciprocal to that as I just spoke to. But most of the time it's going to be either 2 get back guys and 3 rebounders, or 3 get back guys and 2 rebounders. But the one thing I want them to be able to do is to know from day one throughout the season, this is your role. You're going to be a rebounder, and I want you to go rebound.
Yep.
And you're going to be a guy that we want to get back on defense and be ready to stop the other team.
Okay, I like that, Coach. And when they have the ball and coming up the court, where's your pickup area on the ball, Coach? Does it depend on personnel, or do you have a set pickup line?
Well, we've been fortunate that being at Division II, pretty much all the courts we play on have a volleyball line on them. And so we want to pick up at least by that volleyball line as the ball is coming down in conversion. Okay. Now, if it is a walk-up situation and we have guys that are capable, we'll pick you up at half court. Now, once the ball is entered into play, whether it's dribbled up and passed, or it was a fast break that didn't materialize and they threw it back out to start their offense, we have what we call a heat up line. And it's just, if you take the old coaching box and draw a line across the floor, and it's going to be probably about 2 to 3 steps above the top of the key, that's where we want our heels to be. And we don't want to go out further than that. And the reason is very simplistic. If we're all the way out in a half-court possession, picking a guy up at half court, and now he makes that pass to the wing because we're not denying the wing. We have too much distance to travel to get off of the ball and get into our gap as the defender of the man who passed it. And so we don't, we try to keep our defense as tight as we can, and we feel like that heat up line allows us to pressure the ball, which is of paramount importance,
Yep.
to take away shots. But one of the most important things in any defensive system, I believe, as I've went through the years, is your ability to get on and off the basketball.
Right.
Whether you're a denial team and you know, you're jumping to the ball and reestablishing denial, or you're a pack line team like us and you're getting off the ball and getting into a gap, or you're going from the gap and closing out to the basketball. Your ability to do those two things as quickly as possible are of key importance to the success of your defense.
Right, coach. And common terminology maybe is the kind of jump to the ball or move on air flight. What is the terminology you like to say to your guys when the ball is being passed around?
If we're guarding the basketball and we're going to get and it's passed, then we're going to turn and sprint into the gap. We don't want to slide. We don't want to meander.
Yep.
If we do those things, it's going to take us too long. Again, it's the importance of getting on to off and off to on as quickly as possible. So we're going to sprint into that gap. Now, once we get into the gap, we're very particular with this.
Sure.
We like to keep a slightly closed stance.
Okay.
So that we're helping, in the terminology we use is that we're helping with near arm, near leg. So if I was guarding you and you were at the top of the key and you pass it to the right wing and I'm sprinting back into my gap, I'm slightly closed with my left hand and left foot forward. I mean, my right hand and right foot, that'd be my left hand, left foot forward. I got turned around there. So if the wing did try to drive it into the middle, I'm helping near arm, near leg to seal my gap and force the next pass.
Sure. I like that, Coach. And that led me to my next question is the guys who are one pass away, what is your terminology? Is it just being in a gap stance, a closed stance? Do you have specific teaching points that you're going to tell the one pass away guy in that gap?
We want it to be in a slightly closed stance.
Mm-hmm.
Your job is to see, really, this is the best way to describe it. You've got to follow these rules.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to put a pack line on the floor.
Yep.
And it's just a dotted line we put down on the court. And I tell coaches all the time at clinics, I think it's really important that you put that line down because players are visual and they need to see. And you can just go to Lowe's and buy some blue painter tape, and that will go on your court, and it won't bother the varnish, and it won't upset your AD or your administration, and you can just peel it right back up when you need to. But what it does, it gives your players an opportunity to see this is the line, and we just put a dotted line out there so they get a visual.
Sure.
Okay, so here's what we want to accomplish. When you're a non-ball defender and you're in the pack, you need to be 2 feet in the pack. Now we like one of those feet to be on that pack line. But 2 feet in the pack.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's the first thing.
Yep.
Second thing is we need to be in a slightly closed stance, and we want to see both man and ball.
Mm-hmm.
If you're losing sight of one, then you've got to readjust your position up or back so that you can see both. You've got to constantly be able to see both. And then finally, I want to be closer to the basketball than the person I'm guarding. So now if I was guarding you again and you were at the top of the key and you pass it to the wing, I want to be closer as a defender to the ball on the wing than you are if you haven't moved as the offensive player on the top of the key.
Yep.
Now, those three rules are easy to follow for stationary players. The problem comes into effect when the ball's moving, and then you incorporate screening and cutting and all those kind of things.
Yep.
And we've got a couple of drills that we use to work on that, but that's where it's imperative that your players see both man and ball.
Right. That makes total sense, Coach. I like that terminology there, and I love having that line down if you're running the pack. Can I ask, Coach, going back when the ball is in the middle, do you influence a certain way?
We do not. Now, I know there are coaches that really feel strongly about forcing it left or forcing it to a player's weak hand. I think that's a little bit too difficult for our players to I found it's too difficult. Maybe it's too difficult for me to coach, but I found it's too difficult for our players to execute. So we just want to keep the ball in front.
Yep.
We want to put as much pressure as we possibly can and keep the ball in front. And the same thing occurs if it's on the wing. We want to keep the ball in front. Now, to accomplish that, what we tell our guys is we want the back of your head and your spine should be facing the rim, the mouth of the rim. If you've got that part of your body to the rim, then you're square. When the one thing that I do get a little bit a pet peeve about is when a player, if the ball starts to beat me, how players have a tendency just to open up and almost usher the ball to the rim. I want to reestablish and stay square with that player so that my shoulders are parallel with half court if I'm guarding the ball on the top.
Right.
Where I'm staying kind of parallel. I'm probably not saying this properly, but you would stay along the pack line, along that arc, and not forced to the baseline or forced to the middle. Now we're telling guys no baseline. That's we have 7 things that our guys know are non-negotiables. They're within the order of things from me, the things that really upset me if they go haywire.
Sure.
And our guys know that, and that's part of creating a defensive culture. But one of those things is no baseline. We're not going to give up baseline. So that coaches always say, well, do you force middle? No, we do not force middle. I do not want to force middle. But I'm just telling you, you cannot give up the baseline.
Yep.
Now you figure it out.
Yep.
I love to be as exact as possible in our teaching. I don't like to leave a lot of I don't want to leave gray area as a teacher. But with that being said, I think some of it is your players have to figure it out.
Sure.
Here it is. You've got to teach. Part of our job is to teach them how.
Right. Hey, Jude, I think Coach might have froze right here. Oh, I think Coach froze, but I think we'll get him back on, maybe. It just froze up. He was just in a teaching point. There you go, Coach. I got you back.
Oh, I apologize for that. I don't know what happened.
No, Coach, you're getting excited talking defense. It just froze the system. That's all.
That can happen. Okay.
I know.
Heated up a little bit.
Heated up. Yep.
What the thought I had was relaying was the not forcing middle, and we don't force middle, but we're just telling them that we can't give up the baseline. And part of our job as coaches is teaching our guys how to make decisions, whether those are good offensive decisions or good defensive decisions. And to do that, you have to play.
Yep.
I get a little bit. A lot of our guys, they're so into today training with a trainer.
Yeah.
And they do all this cone work and 1-on-0 work. And I tell them all the time, man, you can beat the heck out of that cone and make great decisions when there's nobody in the gym. I want to see you when you're 2-on-2, 3-on-3, 4-on-4, and 5-on-5, and you've got to make really good decisions with and without the basketball.
Yes. I like that a lot, Coach. One thing you said about the middle I really agree with is I know some coaches it works for them, but I'm the same way. Is if we say we're going to force to his weak hand, then you got to figure out what's his weak hand. Then you say when the ball's in the middle, and then if you say you're going to force him left, and then he's a right-handed player or a left-handed player, that so just taking that out of the thinking out of that part of it, I like that, just straight up in the middle on him.
Amen.
Yeah. That's good stuff. And another thing too, Coach, what you said too about just the guys, you lay it out for them. I love that. And they have to figure it out. I heard the Tennessee women's head coach talking about this. She told them one practice, she said, you guys have to keep the ball out of the paint. I'm not going to tell you any rules or anything. It was summer practice, but figure that shit out basically. And that's what she said, kind of paraphrasing, but she said they just kept so hard to keep it out of the paint. And she said it was kind of them teaching it, and figuring it out what we wanted without them, kind of having that exact instruction on defense. So it's finding that line, Coach, which I know you do a great job of. Coach, I did want to ask the next question about screening game. So I guess it's a generic question, but non-ball screens, do you switch or do you keep matchups? Or how do you get through if you're keeping matchups?
Another really good question. And when I started today and talked a little bit about my time in my first 10 years of coaching at Cal PA, when we fought for every square inch of the floor, we
Mm-hmm.
switched all like screens. So
Mm-hmm.
perimeter screens we switched, and big to big screens we switched.
Mm-hmm.
And that was very effective because of how we were playing to deny and forcing the ball baseline. But once we converted to pack line, I loved it because we don't switch. We want to maintain the integrity of our matchups.
Sure.
So, is it harder at times? Yes, no doubt about it. But it's only harder from the standpoint that we have to teach and we have to coach. And
Mm-hmm.
it's not just throwing them out there and say, do this. Um, and not that teams that switch don't coach the heck out of it, because they sure do. But in our deal, we're going to guard actions from the
Yep.
very first day that we start practice. And for us, that's usually in September at some point. So the
Mm-hmm.
first day we start practice, we're going to guard actions, and we're going to be guarding those actions all through our season, so that we get better and better and better. And the reasoning being that we don't want to switch, coach, is I want my best on ball defender guarding your best playmaker. I want my best guy at contesting shots, or my best guy at taking away a really good shooter guarding that shooter. And I found that when one of the issues we ran into when we switched a lot was that, okay, we went through all this deal about a matchup, and I'm guarding a guy who's a great shooter. And the next thing I know, the first 6 times down the court, they run a screen for him where I'm switching to a
Yeah.
driver, and I'm
Yeah.
not guarding that shooter anymore. And
Right.
I'm trying to keep up with, well, who's this guy I'm guarding? What does he do? So rather than trying to understand that on the fly, I think it's easier when you can teach guys, this is who you're guarding. We're not switching. And you kind of understand these are the things we're going to
Sure.
give you 2, 3 things tops that you can do to influence that person and hopefully take the better parts of his game away. So a big part of our scouting report isn't your set plays and, you know, what you call them or how you run them and all that
Mm-hmm.
kind of stuff. A big part of our scouting report now is your personnel.
Personnel.
How we want to guard you.
Yep.
And more importantly, because this is what it really comes down to, is how we're going to close out to you.
Okay.
We're going to close out to you, a Ray Allen closeout, or maybe today you would refer to that as a Steph Curry closeout because you're a great three-point shooter.
Right.
Is it a Kobe closeout because you can do both things equally well, drive it and shoot it?
Right.
Is it a Rondo closeout because you can only drive it and you can't really shoot the basketball? So you get, or is it a dead three closeout? Where somebody, you got to get on them and make them put the ball on the floor.
Yep.
So we've got to figure those things out. That's kind of the Steph Curry closeout.
Sure.
But yeah.
Sure. I like that, Coach. And so then just staying with scouting report just for a little bit, then you guys are personnel is probably the biggest part of that, you're saying, more than the actions. And I know that sometimes and coaches have different ways to do that. And I agree with that too. That's what we try to do at places that I coach too, is really know that personnel, know who their shooters are, know who their, weapons are. They put it on the floor, et cetera. But Coach, do you get caught up? I'm always curious in this question a little bit. Do you get caught up in calls? Because hell, I find most of our players barely remember our calls. So how deep do you get with that,
Coach? I'm right there with you.
Okay.
I'm right there with you.
Okay.
No, we don't get caught up in calls. If there's one or two things we can give our guys that we think that would help them as cues, that if you hear this, expect this to happen, then yes. But we're as you said, first of all, we're personnel driven, and secondly, is trying to defend tendencies. And everybody has tendencies, good, bad, or ugly. They have tendencies.
Yes.
So if we're guarding a team that relies a lot on screen to screener, then that week in practice, we're going to work some screen to screener actions so that our guys are adept with everybody guarding everywhere to guard that. If you're a ball screen centric team, we're going to spend our, and I'll say this, I think that right now defensively, and not to get off target here, but
No.
right now defensively, one of the most important things, we want to guard the things that happen the most.
Yes.
Practice the things that happen the most. Everybody is so ball screen centric now
Yes.
that we will start guarding ball screens in September.
Yep.
And unlike a lot of teams, a lot of programs, we're only going to guard them a couple of ways, and we stick with those. And our thought is that by the time we get to, when it counts the most in February and March, we've been doing it the same way. We haven't tried to guard it 7 or 8 different ways. We've done it the same way throughout the season. We're going to be a heck of a lot better at it.
Right. And Coach, that leads me to my next question was going to be about ball screens, but staying with what you said about how your philosophy is, and then I want to ask you how you guard them. There's a great football coach in Texas, Gary Joseph, and I heard him talk once. He's a coach for Katy High School, and he's fabulous. And he said,
I've heard about him.
Coach, he's fabulous. But what he said is, I see all these coaches and they do their thing and they have a million plays, and we have, like, I don't know what he said, but we have 8. But we're going to be excellent at all 8, and we're going to do them right, And there's something to that, being great at what you do rather than being good at a million things.
I would wholeheartedly agree. There's a great NBA example, Jerry Sloan, who was the coach of the Utah Jazz with Karl Malone and John Stockton, and the great shooter. I can't think of his name.
Hornacek, right, maybe.
Hornacek. There you go. He said, I heard him say a number of times, we have 7 plays. We have 7 plays. And that's it. And meanwhile, you got NBA teams running, 100+ plays. And I'm with you. Our guys would have difficulty remembering, we don't run a lot of plays either. So we're not a set play team, and we don't try to take away the other team's set plays.
Sure. And your guys know what they're doing. And speaking of knowing what they're doing on these ball screens, Coach, and I watched some synergy. You guys do a great job with the hedge. But can I ask just what is your number one defense? And then can you talk through the little bit of the terminology of that ball screen defense?
We divide ball screens into 2 distinct areas. They're either side ball screens or middle ball screens. That's simple. Middle ball screens are anything that happens in the middle third of the floor, pretty much designated by the just outside the lane lines extended. Side ball screens are anything on the side of the floor, the outside thirds of the floor. If it's a side ball screen, then we're going to momentarily trap. We're getting over top of all ball screens. We don't give our guys a choice. Our thought, Dan, is that we are not going to let the ball beat us. We want to take the ball out of the equation and force you to beat us with someone who's not as comfortable doing so. So if we can get out and momentarily trap that with a hard hedge, that's what we do call it. We call it a hard show. Then force you to give up the basketball, then we feel like we've done a pretty good job with that. The true trick of guarding ball screens, it's not those 2 men. Those 2 men those 2 defenders usually can do their job pretty well. It's the other 3, because ball screen defense is a 5-man proposition. And I feel like the most important guy to that is we call him the 5th defender. And for instance, if we had a side ball screen with a corner filled, so we got a 2-side basically. Now we've got a good tag man because he's a corner man who's lifting. And he's kind of our 5th defender initially, in that he's the guy that's going to end up, as the ball comes off the screen, he's going to be the guy that's the furthest away from the ball. But if that corner was empty and the reverse side of the floor's corner was filled, then that guy becomes our tag man. We call him a low man because he is the 5th defender. He's the guy that's the furthest away from the basketball. And so I think it's really important that our guys have the ability to conceptualize and understand that, and understand the decision making in it. So our 3 non-ball, off-ball defenders, they're zoning up, and they're basically not guarding men per se. They're guarding an area, and our screener defender and our ball defender are taking care of the screen.
Yep. I like that, coach, and they know their assignment. What does the player that's let me ask this, coach. How do you get your guys to go over the top so good? I mean, it's tough because the easy way is just to go under, but you want them going over top. That's the assignment. How do you get them to go over the top, coach?
Well, number one, we're going to demand it.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yep.
You've got to do that. If you don't do it, we're going to keep doing it until you do it right.
Yep.
And I learned that a long time ago from a coach that I played for. You're gonna keep doing it till you do it right.
Sure.
And we have 3 rules for those guys that are very simplistic. As soon as you know that you're going to be screened,
okay,
and we want to body up, body in, body over.
Okay, I like that. Body up,
body in, body
Yep.
over. Body up means I'm going to get up into the ball. Body in means I'm forcing it into the screen. I cannot allow the ball to reject me. And body over means I'm getting over top of the screen. The fact that we're either hard hedging in the middle of the floor, or we're level show, or hard hedging on the side of the floor and level showing in the middle of the floor, our guard's responsibility, I should say our ball defender's responsibility, does not change. He is always getting over that screen.
Mm-hmm.
Always.
Yep. I like that, coach. I love that body up too, because that's sometimes is the problem is the screen comes in and they're not up on them, and then they just go. I like that.
Exactly.
Yep.
Exactly.
That's great stuff, Coach. Coach, this is really wonderful defensive talk here, Coach. I really appreciate your time. Just a couple more questions, Coach. My first one is just on the help defense on these drives. When the ball is, I know you don't want to give up or influence middle, but you definitely are not letting it go baseline. But when the ball is driven middle, what is the terminology on helped? Do they lose sight of their man and just fully commit to help and wall up? Can you just talk through a little bit of your guys who are coming over to help on penetration?
That's another really good question. And again, let's talk about the ball defender first. His job is not to give up baseline, and if it starts in the middle, to try to level that dribble off. Here's how he's going to do that. He's not going to be able to accomplish that by sliding with the guy. If I'm sliding with you and you're driving the ball and you got your head down and going, you're going to beat me every time.
Sure.
So as soon as I understand that this guy's gaining, he's beating me, I'm getting beat here. We say you got to get off and get ahead. So I got to get off the ball and I got to sprint to get ahead. I can't ride his hip. I'm not riding him to the rim. I'm going to get off and I'm going to pick out a point that's ahead of where he's going, and I'm going to take that point away.
Yep.
That is the beauty of the pack line defense. I hate to be this corny, so to speak, but it's beautiful to watch
Sure.
the guys execute it correctly.
Yep.
My help defender is helping near arm, near leg, so he can still see both, because if that man would cut back door, he's going with him.
Okay.
If his man would cut
Yep.
back door, he's going
Sure.
with him. So
Yep.
he's helping near arm, near leg, and he's already in help. That's the key to pack line defense.
Yep.
Those help guys, that's why we put them in the pack. We're not a help and recover team. We are a recover team. We're
Yep.
already in help. We're
Yep.
already there. So
Yep.
as you drive, I'm already in that gap. And my guy that you were beating is getting off and getting ahead and reestablishing his position on the basketball so that I can then recover. And that's where the decision-making comes into effect, that it takes time in working with your players to teach them through 2-on-2, 3-on-3, 4-on-4, and 5-on-5, so they can get a feel for that and understand it.
Yep. I like that, Coach. One question about ball side corner threes. That sometimes teams will try to attack that, and I'm kind of guessing what you're going to say, but is not let the ball go that way, right? To be driven towards the baseline. But if they drive that way, do you help in with that one pass away from the corner and give up with that corner three, or is that something that you already have in place? How do you handle that kind of penetration?
As a rule, yes, we're still in the gap. We're not necessarily helping in. I don't want it to be a two-part move where I've got to leave my gap and help into the basketball to stop the ball. And now all of a sudden I got to change momentum and recover to my man. The big part about being a gap defender is that I'm already in help. So when you drive it, you're driving right into me. So all I have to do is recover, close out to my
Right.
man if you pass it to him. So that's the first thing.
Okay.
The second thing is that I got to understand who I'm guarding in that corner. Is he a Reggie Miller or a Steph Curry? Is he a
Yep.
is he a Kobe? Is he a Rondo that's going to drive that? Is he here lately? Is he a Westbrook that
Yep.
can't throw a three in to save his life? Is he a guy I've got to take the drive away from? So I've got to know who I'm guarding. Now, as a rule, I want to guard it just the way I've told you.
Yep.
Occasionally, if we're guarding just a great player, like if we were guarding Steph Curry, and we might say, okay, we'll live with this guy driving it on us and us recovering to get in front of him, not to give up that three to Curry. That's a judgment you've got to make as a coach.
Sure.
But when we're teaching this, we're going to definitely be in that gap and force the next pass. You nailed it right from the beginning. Don't get beat to the outside.
Yeah.
Don't get beat to the baseline. If
Yep.
you don't get beat there, we don't have that issue to deal with.
Right. Right. I like that, Coach. Everyone's accountable in the defense. Coach, last question with basketball here. What does high school kids who come in and who maybe haven't played the pack, but you recruit them because you see the upside and you want them to come be a Lion, what is the hardest thing for them to grasp before that light bulb goes on and bam, they got it,
That's a really good question. I think probably the most difficult thing for them is what we talked about earlier, and being in that gap and understanding the decision making of how long to stay and readjusting, constantly repositioning in the gap.
Yep.
So, for instance, there's a two guard front, say, and the guard drives it towards the middle, and I'm guarding the other guard that he's bringing the ball to. And so, as long as he's got his man squared up, the ball defender, then I'm repositioning my gap and I continue to move along as my offensive player moves and the ball moves. I think that's the first thing. And then the second thing would be that in guarding the basketball, that I don't just escort that guy or ride his hip to the rim or into the lane, that as soon as I'm starting to get beat, I get off and get ahead and reestablish my positioning. Those are probably the things I think that take a little bit the longest to get our guys to do. We've got a young man from Carrollton High School in outside of Dallas, Evan Anderson. I think Evan should have been a two-time defensive player in our league already. His synergy numbers, and we're it's kind of so we have that stuff here at this level that kind of rate where guys are and the percentage of field goal percentage they give up and how good a job they do in our defense. His are off the chart.
Wow.
He always guards the other team's best player, whether it's their point guard or off guard or wing, sometimes even a big. I mean, he's going to guard that guy.
Yep.
And he's just one of those guys, Dan, when he came to us out of high school, he obviously had been very well coached. He had a really good feel for how to do the things we just talked about.
Sure.
So you get guys like that, and then you get other guys that don't have as much feel, but as they stay in it and develop it, and they see guys around them that are just committed to your culture, they're going to get it.
Yep. I like that, Coach, and he is a fabulous defensive player. Looking at it, last question, Coach, and thank you again for the time here. But advice for younger coaches. You've been doing this a long time. Going to get your 600th win this year, 38 years starting this year. Coach, what about guys just coming in, into our profession? Any advice for the younger coaches out there?
Yeah, I mean, it's just such a vast question. I think the most important thing is to be ready, to study and be ready, to not always think about the next job you want, but focus on the job you're in and do the best job you can there, but prepare while you're there. I do tell coaches all the time that one of the best things I did as a young assistant coach is I put together a notebook. This is how I want to play. This is the philosophy I want to have defensively, offensively. this is decisions I'm going to make in recruiting, how I'm going to hire staff, how I want to run practice, what a practice is going to look like. And, my first opportunity came late in the year, normally speaking, and I was blessed to work for a great head coach at Charleston Southern named Tommy Gaither.
Yep.
Who gave me his blessing to go after and take the job. But I ended up taking the Cal PA job. My first day on the job was like November 2nd. They were already 2 weeks into practice, and we literally had like 10 days to get ready for our first game. And if I'd have walked in there and said, okay, now I'm the head coach, now I got to figure out what I want to do with this stuff.
Yeah.
I would have been in a lot of trouble. Now, did I make some bad decisions? I guarantee you I did. Did I make a lot of mistakes? Absolutely, I made mistakes. But I had a general idea of this is how I want to do it. I had it on paper. And so I think that's an important thing. And then, again, just do a great job where you're at, and the rest will take care of it. Take care of the people you're working with and working for, and particularly those young men that you're coaching every day.
Right.
And good things will happen for you. This is a great profession.
It is.
I think it's awesome. I was kidding when we first started this that, I tried to just, I can't think of a better way to do something than to do something that you absolutely love to do.
Sure.
And every day I get juiced up about going to work and working with our guys.
Yep.
Yep.
Well, that's great stuff, Coach. I love that advice. And thank you again, Coach, for taking time out of your day to join Basketball on Brew. This conversation has been great about defense and just about your career. So I appreciate you so much. You're a fabulous coach and a fabulous man. Thank you, Coach.
You're too kind, Coach. I appreciate you and wish you the very best. Best of luck with this podcast and also in your coaching career, which I know you're doing a great job with. And hopefully we can sit down someday in person.
Absolutely.
Have a sandwich and talk some more ball.
Yeah, absolutely. Look forward to it, Coach. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay. Well, that was great stuff from Coach Boone, just a fabulous basketball coach, so many experiences. And we didn't get a chance to talk about his offense, but he runs great motion offense wherever he's coaching, and they have a great team coming back next year. So excited to see what they do in a very tough Lone Star conference. Thank you again, everyone, for joining and watching tonight, the Basketball on Brew podcast. I'd like to thank my producer, Jude McLaren, who makes all this happen and does a fabulous job. Please do us a big favor by subscribing on YouTube. Hit that subscribe button if you're watching on YouTube before you sign off. If you're watching on Twitter, please hit that subscribe button right there also, or that follow button on Twitter. And we just really appreciate the audience, and as we keep trying to grow our Basketball and Brew podcast. Look forward to a great podcast next week. But one more time, I want to thank our sponsors, Pie Society in San Marcos, pizza, beer, spirits, great vibe, great time. And, of course, Zelix Ice House. Grab a group of friends and went to San Marcos, head there for happy hour, and you will have a fabulous time at Zelix. Thank you again. We look forward to the next episode of Basketball and Brew.